All right, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Sean here at Zyxel, and today we're going to be talking about our wireless access points, giving you sort of an introduction to them and a little bit better understanding of our access points, what we offer, and a little bit of what's coming in the future. As we go through today, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them up and send them in using chat or Q&A, and I will do my best to answer them for you. So we'll go ahead and get started. So when it comes to our access points, there's some design philosophies here that basically apply to all of our business class access points. Basically everything NWA 100 series and higher. So one of those things is what we call RF first by design. Basically, we put a lot of time, effort, and engineering into the RF performance of the access points, specifically when it comes to receive sensitivity. So one of the things we do differently than some of our other competitors out there is we include extra shielding on the main board itself to help prevent EMI issues. We also include 4G and 5G filters on our products as well. So you may ask yourself, well, why do you need a 4G or 5G filter? And the answer is if you're deploying Wi-Fi in your home or in some small offices, you probably don't. However, larger buildings, so larger condos, larger office buildings, they have issues with 4G and 5G signals not being able to penetrate the building that well. So their solution to that is to use a system that rebroadcasts cellular signals inside the building. And many of those cellular signals border the same RF frequencies that Wi-Fi uses. And in these buildings, they're often using the exact same cable drops that you will be using for your access points. So you end up in a situation where you've got essentially what are cellular access points being deployed and installed right next to your access points that are broadcasting frequencies that border your access point frequencies. And that can cause interference issues. So that 4G and 5G filtering helps solve that for us. The other thing we do is we do not mount our antennas directly onto the main PCBA. Instead, most of our access points will have a second subboard with a metal shield between that board and the main PCBA, and we mount our antennas directly to that. If you look at our competitors, even our more expensive competitors, they usually don't do that. So this is something we do here, and that provides greater isolation for the Wi-Fi signals. So it doesn't make much difference when it comes to good, strong signals, but it makes a huge difference on those edge cases where the signal coming back from the wireless user is just barely making it back to the access point. The other thing we do is that we design our access points to last and last and last. So when you're dealing with a solid state piece of hardware, there's two major causes of failure. The first one is capacitor failure. So electrolytic capacitors have a number of different ways that they can fail, from leaking to drying out to boiling over. So we do not use any electrolytic capacitors. We only use solid state capacitors in our hardware. The other common cause of failure in a solid state device is heat fatigue. So we spend a lot of engineering making sure our devices do not suffer from heat fatigue. So we'll normally have some form of heat sink that's designed to pull the heat off of the PCBA and out of the components. And then we have vent holes to help vent that heat out. If you look at some of our cheaper competitors that only offer a 1 year or 2 year warranty, the reason for that is there are no heat sinks and there is no vents to allow the heat out of the device. So after a year or two, you end up with heat fatigue causing failure of the components in the board itself. So when it comes to our access points, all of our access points can be managed in Nebula. You don't have to use Nebula, but Nebula is there for you. For those of you that might be new to Zyxel, Nebula is our free cloud management platform that allows you to manage our access points, switches, security gateways, LTE router, all through a single pane of glass. It's free for you to use. In addition to support for Nebula, we also support Smart Mesh in all of our access points. Um, the ability to support WPA3 Enterprise is available in all of our business class access points. Support for fast roaming and AP assisted roaming. The ability to do traffic shaping. The ability to apply UTM-like security features just to your wireless clients is something we can offer. And then we have things like Wi-Fi aid, Wi-Fi health, etc. So when you look at our W series access points, they have access to some of our more advanced antenna technologies. Many of these technologies are not commonly found on our competitors. So the first one is something we call dual optimized antennas. So your traditional wireless access point is optimized. The antennas have been optimized with the idea that you're going to mount the access point on the ceiling pointing down, and that everything that needs to get Wi-Fi access is going to be underneath that access point. Basically, the signal is optimized to radiate out from the access point in a 360-degree pattern and then slightly down. This is often referred to as umbrella coverage. The challenge you run into out in the real world is you often do not get to mount your access points on the ceiling. You have to make some compromises and maybe mount your access points on a wall. So the challenge with that is you've rotated the access point 90 degrees from what the antennas are optimized for, and you end up sending a lot of the signal up into the ceiling or down into the floor. So it's wasted signal at the very least. So you're not getting the best coverage for where you've mounted that access point. Or depending on what those floors are made out of, you may be causing interference issues or picking up interference from access point on other floors. So our solution to this is the dual optimized antenna system. So instead of one antenna pattern set of antennas that's optimized for the ceiling, you get two sets of antennas, one that's optimized for the ceiling, one that's optimized for the wall, and then you can choose which one to use based on where you've installed that access point. Another technology we have is smart antenna technology. So this is something that we've put into our access points. It's designed basically to increase capacity, so more users on the access point, better range from the access points, and then also reduced interference from other devices that may be using the same RF channels. So if you've sold or are familiar with Ruckus's BeamFlex Plus, it's a similar technology to that. And basically the way it works is instead of having one set antenna pattern, like with our regular access points or dual sets of antenna patterns, we instead use an antenna array. So this array allows us, combined with an algorithm, to select from hundreds of different antenna patterns. So there's two things we look at. Where is the client device in relationship to the access point? What can we do to tailor the signal so it is focused on where that client device is? And then the other thing that we've spent a lot of time tweaking and adjusting is looking at where are other sources of RF interference, and then choosing an antenna pattern that allows us to ignore those sources of interference. So one of the case studies we have out there, and you will see this if you attend our Wi-Fi 101 webinar, um, is using smart antenna in a hospitality scenario where you've got a lot of access points. We compare our smart antenna access point with a very similar competitor's access point that doesn't have smart antenna. And what happens is in a dense RF environment, it allows us to be able to achieve greater than 100% airtime utilization between access points, where without smart antenna, you cap out at about 97% airtime utilization. So smart antenna basically allows you to achieve almost 50% greater than the theoretical maximum airtime utilization in these dense environments. So it's really beneficial anywhere you've got a lot of users, or you've got a lot of access points, or you've got a lot of other sources of RF interference. All of our business class access points use some variation of our multi-mounting bracket. So this is a bracket that you would mount directly to the wall, ceiling, or to a junction box. So this has got screw holes that are designed to work with rectangular outlet boxes or rounded junction boxes. So you connect directly to them, and then the access point itself snaps into place onto the mounting bracket. And then to release the access point from that mounting bracket, you use a screwdriver or some other long device to reach in and hit a tab that then releases the access point, but otherwise it's locked in place. We do also sell optional accessory, the drop ceiling mounting clips. So these clips attach to the T-bar that's used to hold up a traditional drop ceiling. Um, So you mount the mounting bracket to those clips, and then the access point slides into place. So now we'll start talking a little bit more about the access points in particular. So when it comes to our access points, we've got three different main categories of access points, um, naming them simplicity, flexibility, and ultimate. So simplicity are our SOHO type access points. So these are our NWA access points that are sub 100. So our NWA 50 series, our NWA 90 series. These will often come bundled with AC adapters, since a lot of your Soho and home users don't have PoE infrastructure. These also may be missing some features that you would expect to see in a business class access point. So for instance, the 50 series doesn't have captive portal. The 90 series doesn't offer load balancing. These access points also are limited to a 2-year warranty on them. The next step up is the flexibility series. So these are the NWA access points that are at least 100 or higher. So our NWA 110BE or NWA 210BE, or excuse me, AX-6E, NWA 210BE, etc. So these basically are our entry-level business class access points. They come with a lifetime warranty, and they have access to the full feature set of software, such as load balancing, captive portal, etc., that you would find in Nebula. And then the next step up is our Ultimate Series access points. These are any access points that start with the letter W. So these access points oftentimes come bundled with our dual optimized antennas or our smart antenna technology. These access points also come bundled with 1 year of Nebula Pro Pack. The also are the access points you want if you don't want to use cloud management, but you do want to use a local area controller. So the W series are able to work with the controller software that's built into our USG Flex series of security firewalls to provide local area management. They also can provide things like the ability to do collaborative detection and response, where the access point coordinates with our firewall gateway to provide enhanced security to wireless users accessing the network. The W series is also what's generally used for providing, what do we want to call it here, secure Wi-Fi, which is our ability to convert an access point into a cloud managed remote VPN appliance. So just to summarize that for you, the main differences on the business class APs between the NWA series and the WBE series is bundled Nebula Pro Pack on the Ws, support for local wireless LAN controllers, access to some advanced antenna technologies, access to secure Wi-Fi, access to collaborative detection and response. And another feature I didn't already mention is the ability to do GRE tunneling, where you tunnel wireless traffic from the access point through your local network infrastructure to your security gateway, then apply whatever security policy rules you have before allowing those wireless users access to the local network. So to start with here, we'll talk a little bit here about the Simplicity series here. So we've currently got 4 Wi-Fi 6 models, and we do now have Wi-Fi 7 versions of these models that will be coming in the near future. But we've basically got 3 indoor access points and a lightweight outdoor access point to use. When it comes to outdoor solutions, we've currently got 3 options for you. That NWA 55AXE from the previous slide, our WAX 655E, so that's our heavy duty outdoor Wi-Fi 6 access point. And then we also sell a enclosure that many of our Wi-Fi 6 access points can fit into, which basically helps bump them up and give them a little bit better support for tougher environments. It keeps rain from being able to get on them. It also gives them a slightly greater temperature range that they can operate in. So if you're looking for a cheap, easy way to get Wi-Fi coverage outdoors, you can just buy an indoor AP and mount it inside this affordable outdoor enclosure. We do have some new outdoor enclosures that will be coming this fall that support our Wi-Fi 6 access, or excuse me, our Wi-Fi 7 access points. Um, and then there are some other Wi-Fi 6 access points that I don't have slides for on here. Those are all sort of in the process of being phased out and replaced with Wi-Fi 7 access points. So do keep that in mind. Keep an eye on the price file that we send out each month. As those products get sold through, we are marking those down in the price sheet so you know that they have been discontinued. Just going back here to the 50 series, 50 and 90 series, these models are all expected to stick around at least through the end of the year and probably into Q1 next year. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to be phasing in some Wi-Fi 7 versions of these later on this year. And once we've done that, we will gradually phase out the Wi-Fi 6 versions, which now leads us to our Wi-Fi 7 slides. So just some quick backgrounds on Wi-Fi 7. Wi-Fi 7 provides some significant boosts and changes to the Wi-Fi protocol versus the older Wi-Fi 5 and other technologies. Obviously, the most significant one is greater speeds, the ability to provide a lot greater speeds on through your access points. It's done through larger channels, tweaks and enhancements to the Wi-Fi protocol in general, support for multi-link operation, the ability to be able to simultaneously connect to multiple radios in an access point from a client device, and then aggregate your data across those. And then the other big one is support for 6 gigahertz. So traditionally, Wi-Fi has been limited to 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. And now we have 6 gigahertz available. And the big benefit of 6 gigahertz is basically the available bandwidth for 6 gigahertz is greater than the combined bandwidth that was available in 2.4 and 5. So that means a lot more users, a lot more access points, the utilization of a lot more bandwidth before you start running into those interference issues that plague Wi-Fi on 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So now let's start talking about our Wi-Fi 7 access points in general. So to begin with, we have what we call band flex access points. So this is something we offered with our Wi-Fi 6E products. And we were the only vendor, I believe, that ever did that. However, now we see some other vendors are following that philosophy when it comes to Wi-Fi 7. So our band flex APs are Wi-Fi 7 access points that have 2 radios. One radio supports 2.4, and the other radio supports 5 gigahertz or 6 gigahertz, but not both at the same time. Essentially, it allows you to deploy Wi-Fi 7 APs today that support the majority of your users that support 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. And then in the future, when 6 gigahertz supports becomes much more widespread, you can flip a switch and move those Wi-Fi 7 users over to the 6 gigahertz radio. So it's kind of a way to save you some money. You don't have 3 radios, so you're only paying for 2 radios. You don't need the more expensive processor that you normally require for a tri-radio Wi-Fi 7 solution because it doesn't need to deal with the aggregated bandwidth of 3 radios. Also, and this is important, it allows us to reduce the amount of PoE draw for the access points. That's been one of the challenges with Wi-Fi 7 and the traditional tri-radio access points, is many of those access points require more power than 802.3 AT, aka PoE Plus, can provide. So because of that, you can't run them at full speed or you can't operate them at all without also upgrading your switch infrastructure to support BT PoE power. So this is a way around that. So we've got a number of access points that support this bandflex technology. Now, a really important thing to bring up here is some of our competitors in this space that are now offering similar dual radio Wi-Fi 7 access points. Most of those that are out there only support 2.4 or 5. They do not support the ability to also upgrade to 6 gigahertz at some future point by flipping a switch. They will only ever support 5 gigahertz. So that is something that sets us apart from our competitors. So the first model we have here is the NWA 110BE/WBE 510D. So why am I presenting two models at the same time? And that's because basically the core hardware is the same between the NWA series and the W series. There may be some differences when it comes to the RAM to support the extra software features that the W series offers that the NWA doesn't. Um, but that's why. So generally, our NWA series access points have a very similarly configured W series access point to pair up with them. So it's just easier to talk about them both at the same time. So both of these access points are a BE 6500 class product that supports that band flex Wi-Fi 7 technology that we offer here. Both models have a single multi-gig Ethernet port that acts as your uplink port. And both of these also support the ability to power them via USB Type-C PD power delivery. So the main difference here is going to be the W series offers those additional software features that we talked about earlier, support for controller management, support for collaborative detection and response, bundling with the Nebula Pro Pack, etc., that aren't found on the NWA series. And in this case here, the D on the WBE 510D indicates that this supports that dual optimized antenna on the WBE 510 that allows you to have the two sets of antennas and then choose which one you want to use. The next set of access points that we offer here is the NWA 210BE/WBE 630S. So both of these are a BE 1230. So both are providing data rates over 10 gigabits on the Wi-Fi side of things. Both of these have a multi-gig uplink port on them. And then both of these also have a multi-gig pass-through port. So you can run one cable to an area, power up your access point and provide coverage, and then you can daisy chain from there to another Ethernet port or device to provide it multi-gig Ethernet. Now, very important, the PoE does not pass through, so that other connecting device cannot be a PoE device. And again, these also now support USB Type-C to provide power to the access point if for some reason you don't want to use PoE. And then the big difference, other than the software side of things, again, between the 630S and the NWA 210 is smart antenna technology. So the WBE 630S is our most affordable smart antenna access point that we offer. We've already seen these slides, so I'm just jumping through them fast. And then after the band flex models are our tri-radio. So the traditional Wi-Fi 7 access point with 3 radios built in, one for 2.4, one for 5 gigahertz, and one for 6, all 3 operating simultaneously. So the first pair of access points here is the NWA 130BE / the WBE 530. So both of these are a BE 11,000 access point. So aggregated throughput across all radios is over 10 gigabits on these. Both of these have 2 Ethernet ports. One again, your multi-gig uplink port, and then a multi-gig pass-through port. And then these still have the AC ports on the older ones. At some point here, we are phasing in USB-C on these as a hardware revision. I don't think it's taken place yet, but it is something that will eventually come. Whoops. Whoa. Can we go back? Can we go back? Yes, there we go. And you will notice there is no letter after the model name here. So the only difference between the NWA and the WBE in this scenario is just those software differences that we discussed before between the W series and the N series. The antenna is exactly the same between the two. And then next up here is our flagship access point. Someday here I'm going to fix these animations. Sorry about that. is our WBE660S. So this was our first Wi-Fi 7 access point, and this continues to be our flagship Wi-Fi 7 access point. It supports BE 22,000, so aggregated wireless data rates of over 20 gigabits per second. And it includes all the other fun stuff you would expect to see on a flagship access point, including our smart antenna technology. Whoops. It also has a Bluetooth BLE support built into it. For those of you that are doing those sort of smart marketing applications out there in the real world. Some of the things you will notice here, the power draw on this does require the 60-watt PoE to power it up, or you will need to use USB-C PD to power it if you don't want to provide BT power on the switch side of things. And what you will notice here is that instead of a plastic roof or a plastic belly, it uses a metal belly. So basically, we've turned the bottom of the case into the heat sink to help pull out the heat from the main board and vent it out of the unit itself, so we can continue to offer that lifetime warranty. And this includes a 10 gig uplink port to help make sure that your wired network isn't the limiting factor for your wireless users. And with that, guys, that concludes today's webinar. So if you have any questions, do send those in. I haven't seen any come in yet. You can just use chat to send any questions you have in. In the meantime here, this webinar has been recorded. It will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. So our YouTube channel is called Zyxel America channel. In addition to recordings of our webinars, you can also find video case studies, best practices videos, product announcements, things like that on there. And then if you're one of those LinkedIn animals, you can please connect to us on LinkedIn at Zyxel US channel. And with that, that concludes today's webinar. I don't have any other questions that have come in, so I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar for us. If a question does come up, you can always reach out to me directly, or you can reach out to your salesperson, Andy, Jacob, or David, and they can either answer that question for you, or they can forward it to me or our sales engineer, Marcus, to answer the question for you. Thank you for coming out today, and I hope to see you at one of our future webinars.